Welcome to this deep dive into the fascinating world of human psychology and how it intersects with the modern landscape of business and persuasion. In this video, I'm going to unpack 15 different psychological triggers and cognitive biases that we, as professional marketers, utilize on a nearly daily basis to help influence, persuade, and guide individuals in a specific direction. Let me share my screen. Most often that direction involves encouraging a potential customer to make a purchasing decision. If you are a business owner who is eager to attract more customers and increase your overall sales, these principles will be incredibly beneficial to your growth. Similarly, if you work within a marketing department and your goal is to generate more leads and clients for your employer, understanding these triggers will give you a significant competitive advantage. Even if you are simply a consumer who enjoys shopping, it is vital to understand these cognitive biases so you can protect yourself against unethical or unscrupulous marketers who might try to convince you to buy things that you do not actually need. I must emphasize that these principles are remarkably powerful. In fact, they are so deeply rooted in our subconscious that even when you are fully aware that they are being used, they can still be effective. They act like a powerful marketing magnet that draws your attention in and influences your decision-making process before you even realize it. The first psychological trigger that every marketer and entrepreneur needs to master is known as the halo effect. Essentially, the halo effect is a fancy way of describing a first impression bias. It refers to the human tendency to let our initial impression of a person, brand, or business influence our subsequent thoughts and feelings about everything else related to that entity. When we have a positive first exposure to a message or a brand, that single experience is weighted so heavily that it colors all of our future interactions. This occurs even if the first impression is not a complete or accurate representation of the business as a whole. As marketers, this means we must be incredibly diligent when evaluating the very first touch points a customer has with our brand. Whether it is your website landing page, your professional headshot, or the packaging of your product, you must ensure you are putting your best foot forward. A significant advantage of creating a strong halo effect is that it acts as a buffer against future mistakes. If you build a solid foundation of trust and quality right at the start, your customers will be much more likely to forgive a small error later on because their overall perception of you is so positive. If you're already finding value in these psychological insights, please take a moment to like and subscribe to this video, as it helps us reach more people who are looking to master the art of ethical persuasion. Following closely on the topic of impressions is our second concept, which is the serial position effect. This cognitive bias suggests that when people are presented with a list or a sequence of information, they are far more likely to remember the very first item and the very last item, while the information in the middle tends to get blurred or forgotten. The tendency to remember the beginning is called the primacy effect, and the tendency to remember the end is called the recency effect. As someone obsessed with the customer journey and the design of a marketing funnel, I pay close attention to how we introduce ourselves and how we conclude our interactions. Your initial message must be strong and clear to capture attention, and your final call to action must be memorable to ensure the customer knows exactly what to do next. I'm actually utilizing this effect right now by starting our discussion with the halo effect, as it is one of the most critical concepts for you to retain. I will also make sure the final trigger we discussed today is equally powerful so that it sticks firmly in your memory long after the video ends. The third trigger we need to examine is the recency effect in more detail. This psychological principle states that we, as humans, tend to give much more weight and authority to the most recent piece of information we have received. Even if we have heard a different message for years, the latest thing we encounter often feels more relevant and important. This is a core reason why frequency is so vital in any strategic marketing campaign. To win the business of a customer, you need to be the person they have heard from most recently. Imagine a customer who is ready to buy a new product. They are being pursued by both your business and your competitor. If you are consistently creating content and maintaining a presence in their life, there is a much higher probability that they will see your message right before they make their final choice. Because of the recency effect, they will perceive your information as more valuable and timely, which gives you the upper hand in the decision-making process. Our fourth psychological trigger is the mere exposure effect, which serves as a perfect companion to the concept of frequency. This bias explains that the more often someone is exposed to something, the more they naturally tend to like and trust it. Familiarity breeds a sense of security. When you appear frequently in front of your target audience, they subconsciously begin to view you as a trusted friend rather than a stranger trying to sell them something. By showing up more often, you are effectively achieving two goals at once. You are benefiting from the recency effect by being the most current option in their mind, and you are benefiting from the mere exposure effect by building a foundation of likability and trust. This is why in the world of professional marketing, more truly is more. You do not always need to create entirely unique content for every single platform. You can repurpose, recycle, and automate your messages so that they reach your audience consistently across different channels. It takes a bit of effort to set up this system initially, but once it is running on autopilot, it can serve your business for months or even years. If you appreciate these deep dives into how the human mind works, please like and subscribe to this video right now to help us grow this community of smart marketers. Next, we must discuss the powerful concept of loss aversion. This trigger is rooted in the fact that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. Most people are more motivated to avoid a loss than they are to achieve a gain. This is why the fear of missing out, or FOMO, is such a prevalent force in society. As a marketer or entrepreneur, you can leverage this by incorporating elements of scarcity and urgency into your offers. When you provide an incentive that is only available for a limited time or in a limited quantity, you are forcing the customer to confront the possibility of losing out on a great deal. This encourages them to take action immediately rather than putting it off until later. It is important to ensure that your scarcity is genuine and authentic, as fake countdown timers will only destroy the trust you have worked so hard to build. By setting a real deadline, you help move people away from procrastination and toward a definitive decision. The sixth trigger on our list is the compromise effect. This bias occurs because people generally find it difficult to evaluate a vast array of complex options, so they tend to choose the middle ground to avoid making a mistake. When faced with a choice between a low-priced basic version of a product and a high-priced premium version, most people will gravitate toward a middle option. This middle choice feels like a safe compromise that offers a balance of quality and value. As a business owner, you can use this to your advantage by structuring your offers into three distinct tiers. By placing the product you most want to sell in the middle, you make it the most attractive choice for the majority of your customers. You will still capture the segment of the market that always wants the cheapest option, as well as the segment that always wants the best possible version, but your bulk sales will likely come from that middle tier. Our seventh concept is anchoring, which is closely related to how we perceive price and value. Anchoring refers to the human tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information offered when making decisions. In marketing, that first piece of information is usually the initial price the customer sees. This price becomes a mental anchor against which all other prices are compared. If you present a very high price first, every subsequent price you show will seem much more reasonable and affordable by comparison. This is why many high-end retailers will display their most expensive items right at the entrance or at the top of a sales page. Once your brain has accepted the high anchor, the other options look like a bargain. Anchoring works because it exploits our inability to judge absolute value. Instead, we judge things based on their relative relationship to the information we received first. The eighth trigger we must address is the danger of choice overload. While it might seem like offering more choices is always better, the reality is often the opposite. When a customer is presented with too many options, they often experience a form of decision paralysis. The cognitive effort required to compare dozens of different variables becomes so high that they simply give up and choose nothing at all. Furthermore, even if they do manage to make a choice, they are often less satisfied with their purchase because they worry that one of the other options they rejected might have been better. As a marketer, your primary job is to simplify the decision-making process for your client. You should design a clear and concise customer journey that guides them through a limited number of logical steps. By eliminating confusion and narrowing down the choices, you make it much easier for them to say yes to your offer. Moving to our ninth trigger, we have the framing effect. This is the art of positioning your message or offer in a way that makes it more appealing based on how the information is presented. A classic example of framing is seen in medical consultations. If a doctor tells a patient that a surgery has an 80% success rate, the patient is likely to feel positive and hopeful. However, if the doctor says the surgery has a 20% failure rate, the patient is likely to feel much more anxious, even though the statistical reality is exactly the same. In marketing, you want to frame your solutions in terms of positive outcomes and gains, rather than just focusing on the negative aspects of a problem. While you must acknowledge the pain points your customers are facing, the overall frame of your message should be centered on the transformation and the success that is possible for them. It is always about the customer and how your solution makes their life better. The 10th psychological trigger is the IKEA effect, which is a fascinating phenomenon where people tend to place a disproportionately high value on products that they had a hand in creating. When we invest our own time, energy, and labor into something, we become psychologically attached to it. This was famously demonstrated in a study where participants were asked to build Lego creatures. The builders valued their creations far more than people who simply looked at the same creatures without having built them. You can apply this in your marketing by encouraging engagement and participation from your audience. Ask for their feedback, run surveys, or involve them in the design process of a new product. When your customers feel like they are part of the creation story, they will value your brand much more and become much more loyal. If you have enjoyed learning about these deep-seated human behaviors, please like and subscribe to this video to ensure you get all our future updates. Our 11th trigger is the Pygmalion effect, which is also known as the Rosenthal effect. This principle states that high expectations lead to improved performance. Essentially, people tend to rise to the level of the expectations that are placed upon them. When you treat your clients and customers as smart, capable, and respectable individuals, they are more likely to behave in a way that reflects those qualities. This is not just a matter of being polite, it is an effective business strategy. By signaling that you believe in their ability to achieve great results with your product, you're actually empowering them to do so. This creates a positive feedback loop where both the business and the customer benefit from a higher standard of interaction and achievement. The 12th trigger is confirmation bias, which is the tendency for people to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms their existing beliefs and identity. When we encounter new information, we run it through a mental filter to see if it aligns with what we already think. If it does, we accept it readily. If it does not, we tend to ignore or dismiss it. To utilize this as a marketer, you must deeply understand the worldviews and beliefs of your target audience. When you frame your content in a way that affirms their identity and validates their existing opinions, they will find you much more relatable and authentic. They will start nodding their heads in agreement with your message because you are confirming what they already believe to be true about themselves and the world. Our 13th concept is the Peltzman effect, which is also referred to as risk compensation theory or zero risk bias. This trigger highlights just how much humans despise taking risks. When we perceive that a situation is risky, we tend to pull back and become hesitant. To overcome this in marketing, you must make your offer appear as low risk or as close to zero risk as possible. The most effective way to do this is by offering a strong guarantee, such as a 30-day money-back promise. If you are not in a position to offer a financial guarantee, you must double down on social proof. Provide testimonials, case studies, and clear evidence that your claims are true. By showing that others have successfully navigated the risk and come out ahead, you provide the reassurance that a new customer needs to move forward. The 14th psychological trigger is the bandwagon effect. This is the tendency for people to do things simply because they see others doing them. As social creatures, we look to our peers to help us decide what is safe, popular, and correct. This is why social proof is perhaps the most powerful tool in the marketer's arsenal. When you show a prospect that thousands of other people just like them have already purchased your product and had a great experience, you're triggering the bandwagon effect. It overrides their individual hesitation and makes them want to join the crowd. The more closely the people in your testimonials match the identity of the person you're trying to reach, the more effective this trigger becomes. It effectively answers the silent objection that people like me don't do things like this. Finally, we arrive at our 15th and perhaps most interesting trigger, which is the blind spot bias. This bias states that even when we are aware of all these cognitive triggers, we still believe that we are less susceptible to them than everyone else. We can see how others are being influenced by anchoring or the framing effect, but we mistakenly think that our own decisions are purely rational and objective. This is why these psychological tools are so effective. They operate below the level of conscious awareness. Even if I tell you exactly how I'm using these triggers, your brain will still take the mental shortcuts they provide to help you process information quickly. This is simply how the human mind is wired to function in a complex world. The most ethical and effective way to use these 15 psychological triggers is to build them on a solid foundation of genuine value and honest marketing. If you're using these tools to help people solve real problems, you're doing them a service by guiding them toward a solution that will improve their lives. Marketing at its best is about clearly defining and delivering solutions that provide better results for the customer. If you have found this deep dive into psychology useful and you are looking to start your own AI marketing agency, I have a special opportunity for you. I have created a masterclass on how to start or grow a profitable AI marketing agency, and you can access it by clicking the link in description. I will see you in the next episode as we continue to explore the cutting edge of digital marketing and business growth.